Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, but most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as sharing the show increases the live audience, and this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined initially, at least, by Sleeping Warrior. How are you doing? Good to have you here.
Verby or echoey. I don't know how I'm coming through. Am I coming through any different to normal, or is it about right?
Yeah, it sounds okay. Didn't have sound for a few seconds, but other than that, we're all good.
Have you? I have a troll, a little stalker, and the only thing he ever does is send me.
Would that be me?
Who's your friend? How you doing, new guest? Good to have you.
Hey, Nathan, how you doing? All right. How you doing, Anthony?
What's your name?
Good morning. I recognise your name.
Yes. Oh, sorry, you do or you don't?
What can we do for you this morning? You're a ball earther, right?
Yes. Yeah, so it's me. I've been chatting to you on Skype, yeah?
I recognise the name. I'm just trying to remind myself of the conversation that we've had.
Oh, I'll have to scroll back. Hold
on. What's your nickname? What's the first letter of your nickname on Skype so I can find the conversation?
Glenn.Williamson.
Oh, yes. I see you.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. So the conversation with me and Glenn goes basically as follows, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been looking into refraction, and you've come to the conclusion that there are other references for refraction other than the Metabunk website, and some of them say that the calculator, I think it should be 39 divided by 38 R. But you're saying that Metabunk seems to be underestimated, and you've got evidence that says that it should be 5 divided by 4 R.
The standard they use for microwaves is 4/3.
So 4 divided by 3 gives you a 1. So it's a 33%. So I complain that Metabunk.
Yeah.
I complain
that's
that
microwave though. Sorry, we're lagging.
Can you just bear with me 1 second, both of you? I think we've got a
14.
Sorry, we've got a slight audio issue with a bit of lag. I'm just going to see if I can solve it. Just give me a second.
Yep.
Conclusion. So my view is that
hold on, Sleeping Warrior. I've got a slight issue that I'm trying to resolve, and you won't get heard while I'm figuring it out.
Oh, right. Okay.
I just don't want anyone to miss what you're saying while I'm fiddling with things, because there's a lag. I hope that's solved it. Can you... Sorry, just pretend I've not interrupted. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, so the 4/3 is for microwave. It's the standard effective Earth radius for microwave. But I think optical wavelengths are refracted less. So I think it's somewhere between 7/6 and 4/3. But I need to do a bit more maths and understand a bit better.
So 7/6 gives a return of 33.333. It's basically a third. So up to a third can be refracted back according to what you've been looking into. And my position is that Metabunk gives a 14 to 15% variation, which I find wildly inaccurate. But you suggest that it might be something to do with the fact that it's optical rather than microwave. Is that right?
Yeah, from what I've read, the optical waves refract less than microwaves, and the standard microwave refraction is 4/3. So I haven't been able to find what sort of range for optical waves there is. Yeah, have yet to find that.
So with regards to refraction more generally, I often cite this particular journal reference. Have you seen this one? Have you seen me do this one?
The negligible thing.
Yeah.
I can't think. I could click on you. One sec. Hang on. I'm half asleep. It's actually about midnight, almost here. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the guy, Diego Gutierrez, that I emailed.
Has he emailed you back? I know you've had one email back. Has he got back to you since?
Oh no, only the one.
So in this one, they talk about Fermat's principle on the trajectory of light, which starts basically they're trying to make a simulation, and they're basing it on Fermat's principle, which is the correct principle to base it on. And then for 2/3 of the document, we don't really need to see it because they're talking about the simulation. But as he talks about the refractive differences between the effects that we see in the atmosphere, he gets to this point where he fundamentally says that the effects are negligible. And it's the only reference I've found where it talks about this standard refraction thing, because everybody else talks about things like Fata Morganas and superior mirage and inferior mirage and a few other types of effect that we see in our atmosphere. But nobody really references normal refraction, the normal effect of the refraction. But I have a trouble with this word negligible, because if you look up the word negligible, it says that it's so small or insignificant as to not be worth mentioning or calculating for. But you seem to have, well, do you want to show us the evidence that suggests that it should be more than 15%? Where have you got this from?
Oh, as in evidence that the microwave refraction is 4/3 as a standard.
Well, just the idea that, I mean, in chat we were saying that I was saying that Metabunk's 14-15% is too high. You've now got more than one citation to show that it might be too low. Do you want to show us what you found?
I can't definitively say that it's too low, because I can't find it for optical wavelengths. But for microwaves, they give a standard of 1.33, and then they sort of use that as a standard. Like there's one, I think it was in Abu Dhabi or Arabia somewhere, where they calculated a refraction of 1.66 effective Earth radius.
They must be further down the argument than we are in England.
Oh, it's something to do with like extreme heat at the surface and a very high temperature gradient going up. Yeah, I still am not fully aware of how refraction works, like how you get a super refraction, and how you get lower refraction. Like I think it's something to do with gradients.
I can help with that.
Yeah.
If Nathan will share my screen.
Sure. Let me know. I can click on ask a couple of questions, if I may.
Yeah.
Sure.
For me, I assume.
Well, I'm waiting. You are presented, Anthony, but once you're done, if I don't want to cut off your point, but yeah, I just got one question.
I've clicked on Anthony anyway, so I'm watching your screen.
Okay. So on the Metabook page, it says that refraction is an approximation of the refraction expected under the standard atmospheric conditions. Now, notwithstanding the fact that he puts an arc reference there, which is a continuous downward spiral, there should be a plus or minus at the beginning if he wants to use the correct algebraic expression. The lack of a plus or minus at the beginning means that the light can only ever bend down. And obviously, Rumpus argues that, and obviously doesn't tell us that the light also bends up. But we can see by refraction soundly that he shows that light bends up lovely in his explanation, in his research. So refraction really does bend up as well as down. But when you look into the link here that it describes, it talks about the 4 variables that are the variables, right? And we see that it says the ISA mathematical model divides the atmosphere into layers with an assumed linear distribution of absolute temperature against geopotential altitude. The other 2 values, pressure and density, are computed by simultaneously solving the following equations. Now, to get the second part of it, you need to play around with the vertical pressure gradients, and you need to play around with the ideal gas law in molar form. Honest answer, I don't really understand all this nonsense. Okay, what it seems to me that it's pseudo, like it's science babble designed to impress, like Albert Einstein. It's complicated stuff that I don't think that they could actually calculate it realistically. I mean, I'm sure Paul Voigt could throw the numbers into a calculator and come back with an answer that matches perfectly the curvature. But the reality is these are the 4 values that they play with. And essentially, the main 2 that it seems to be is to do with temperature. Oops, didn't realize that was a thingy. Temperature is one of them, and the amount of actual moisture in the atmosphere itself is the other, which is the ideal gas law. You also get a pressure variation, but fundamentally, it seems to be temperature. It seems to be about the gas law itself, with regards to the pressure and the density in the atmosphere itself. But you have to simultaneously solve these, so that like you can spend time calculating for it, and it takes like a snapshot of the day, and it's not going to be like that for all of the day. It changes continuously, and we see that in the Skunk Bay footage. Are you familiar with the Skunk Bay footage?
Yeah, that was the one I was looking for the other day to show you. Have you got headphones on? Because I'm hearing myself.
No, I can put headphones on. I do have a new sound set up today.
Do you like mine? How good are my headphones?
I've got headphones on now. Is that any better?
Yeah, I'll let me talk and then I'll see if I don't hear myself. Yeah, that's better.
That might not be working.
No, I bought some.
I have to knock these off.
Bought some AirPods the other day. They're pretty awesome.
So we're on Skunk Bay, just to bring you both back on track after the little sound discussion. So what's going on with the sound today?
Well, I don't know what's happened with the sound. I'll turn my gain down a little bit.
It's all good. It's all good at this stage. I'm just trying to bring you back on track by saying you were talking about Skunk Bay, and then is it David? I've forgotten your name already.
Me?
Glenn. Glenn. Sorry, Glenn. Glenn said you were looking for the Skunk Bay footage, just to bring you back on track.
Yeah.
So we see in the Skunk Bay footage. We see that this is a variation on the y-axis, the up and down axis, right? But the argument for standard refraction is that it affects the z-axis, the perception of the observer going from your eyes back to the horizon. Now that's the argument that we're seeing. That we're seeing that it's supposed to be going around the curvature of the Earth and then coming back from it, going around the curve of the Earth and coming back for it. But all we can actually deduce from the Skunk Bay footage is that it's a variation on the y-axis, not on the z-axis. Now, the argument for refraction in the first place is subject to the idea that there is actually a curve to the Earth. Now, you have to show that there's a curve. Am I cutting out?
Just for like 2 seconds, yeah.
So basically, we see that this Skunk Bay footage is the variation on the y-axis. It's the vertical aspect of what we see. Now, the argument is that it goes round the curve of the Earth, which would mean that the building, the land in the background, should be falling behind the curve of the Earth, coming back up, falling behind the curve of the Earth, coming back up. But we don't see that. We only see a variation on the y-axis, which is what is matching in the evidence when you look at what the standard calculation is meant to be based on. It's meant to be based on the vertical pressure gradients, and that's one of the aspects. It doesn't talk about the axis of the Z of the observer. So my position
what would that look like?
Well, you see it there.
Because the x-axis goes like that, right?
It'd be
and the y-axis goes like that. That's the y-axis, and there's the x-axis, reds. There we go. And there's and the z-axis is like that. So any change in the z-axis would be a change in the speed of light getting to you, which you wouldn't perceive, right?
Well, if this is meant to be the z-axis, then how do we show that this is curved? Because it looks like it's the y-axis to me, and I don't see any evidence that it's the z.
I don't think it should be the z. I think it should be the y-axis.
I agree, it should be the y-axis, but the argument for refraction is that it follows the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, but it changes its y-axis.
If it's following the curvature of the Earth, it would be acting on the z-axis to the observer.
No. If you are standing at Skunk Bay and there is light coming from that back mountain, now move yourself around to the left so you can see both the mountain and you as the observer. It's only changing vertically.
So that axis supports refraction only being on the y-axis, correct?
Yeah, because that's where the temperature gradient is. It's like warm at the surface and cooler higher up.
Agreed. But the argument for refraction following the curvature of the Earth is an adjustment on the z-axis, because it's subject to the observer seeing something being brought back from behind the curve. Correct?
No, I see the z-axis as a change in speed. Like the light comes from the mountain behind and comes towards you. If there is a change in the z-axis, it's like that, which you can't really perceive.
I've just got to go and answer the phone. Nathan, do you want to carry on, mate?
Yeah. Well, we're going live soon, because it's like after midnight here.
This is live.
Sorry?
Did you not realise this is live? Yeah.
No. It says off air on mine. That's all right.
I don't know how you got the link otherwise, because the link's posted in the info box, so maybe Anthony shared the link with you.
Oh, there you go.
That must be why. But yeah,
no,
we've been live since you joined.
I just didn't think they were actually live.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Anyway.
What do you want to talk about apart from...
Well, I was just going to... Obviously, you've gone through how it affects the... I forgot which axis now. The up and down axis.
Y-axis, yeah.
You're going to call that Y, fine. So on the Y-axis, you've got a gradient. In essence, when discussing this with the rumpus, although he denied it initially, it essentially necessitates everything being in a different location, a different geographical position to where it actually appears. So in the instance of the image of the Isle of Man, none of it at all has a straight line between you and it in terms of how you can measure. Everything is being affected by refraction in varying degrees all the way up from the bottom to the top. So yeah, in essence, none of it's where you think it should be. It's all in a completely different location due to refraction on your model.
Yes. Yeah, like what you actually see, like if you were to literally follow that line of sight, you would not hit the Isle of Man. Yeah. It's not where it appears to be.
Sure. I mean, this is why I like having these very calm conversations with someone like yourself who accepts that, because that's something that's very difficult to get across to people on both sides of the argument, because that is wherein your choice lies. You can either accept that you can take a straight line measurement to the top of Snaefell, equally any other mountain that's in that picture, and then just take a trig calculation to get you to the altitude of it. You can vary the distances and do the same thing and still come out with the exact same methodology for measuring its height. You just take simple trig, straight lines. Whereas in the globe model, as we've just explained, and it's been conceded really quickly, which I love, essentially nothing's where you think it is. It's all in a totally different location. It's all being bent up. The thing that I struggle with is, obviously, I do understand the rumpus's explanation when he uses the curved line around the Earth and says, it's a slightly less curved gradient as you go round, if you want to account for it being up, in quotes. But all of this necessitates the things that are sat on the horizon being not only being in a completely different geographical location, but some of it's actually physically not there to begin with. So it's it's a lot to have to first understand, but also, once you understand it, also accept. Obviously, I don't, and you do, which is fine.
Yeah, but do you reject refraction completely? Because I've always heard you say that you have a flat Earth model where simple trig works, but on globe Earth you have to have this band-aid of refraction. Do you accept that refraction is a thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, refraction's definitely a thing. It's just it's been co-opted to make people think that there's a curve that isn't there. So when I sort of discount refraction, the thing I would be now going to very often is the demonstration that Philip did. I don't know if you saw that a couple of episodes ago, but that demonstration was fairly concise. He said he used a refraction program to actually model in all of the factors on that day from St. Bees and get it to replicate itself as though it's on a sphere in perfect proportion without any distortion whatsoever, scalable and measurable with art calculations. What he was also quick to point out was that I'll say this bit first actually, he couldn't model the actual refraction that was seen. So there is refraction demonstrated in the image, and it's the only thing, despite all the clever modelling, that he couldn't actually replicate. So he can replicate it coming back from behind the curve in perfect proportion, without any distortion, to the point that he can measure it without calculations. Hold on. But the thing that he actually couldn't measure, so you're asking me specifically about refraction. So the thing that he couldn't measure was the actual refraction that's evidenced in the image. When it came to the flat Earth model, he didn't need refraction. He still applied the straight line trig, And in that respect, the only refraction that's actually demonstrated in the image, he couldn't account for in the globe model, despite actually using refraction in the calculations. And he didn't need to. Why would he when he did it on the flat Earth model? So if he hasn't actually been able to account for it on the globe, the actual visible demonstratable refraction, why on earth would we have to have the goalposts moved to make us account for the only demonstratable observable refraction in the image, when you guys still didn't account for it with all your maths for refraction?
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to investigate. Echo. Who's the new guy? Jamie, can you put headphones on?
Yellow?
Yeah, I'm getting a savage echo from you, I think.
It's just when people first join, they cause a little bit of echo initially. So once he's settled.
What was I saying?
Have I been introduced yet, Nathan?
You haven't, but I'm waiting for a gap. How you doing, Jamie? Good to have you.
Very good, Nathan. Thank you very much.
Turn you up a little bit.
I'm going to go on mute for. I got a little bit of stuff to do for 10 minutes, but then I'll be back. Thank you.
Hopefully speak to you shortly.
Is that MM Artist? No? All right. What was I saying? Yeah, so I'm trying to find out what the sort of average range is in terms of effective Earth radius. I mean, Metabunk uses 7/6. I have a suspicion that the sort of average value of that is a little higher, given that the normal or the standard microwave effective Earth radius is 4/3. So I've got to do a bit of maths there to work out what it should be, and then try and figure out what sort of range you can get. If it is close to 4/3, so 33%, is the range something like 25 to 40 or something, like as an average, and that may bring back a few more feet of the Morgold lighthouse, which will obviously be in agreement with the curve.
Sure. I mean, do you appreciate that this was conceded from pretty much the first debate on the globe side, though, and was just recently modelled by Philip in exactly that way? He made the same concession. Oh yes, I've got to increase the refraction value to get it to work. It's obviously slightly modest what Mick West is doing. It's like, right, okay, so it's modest what Mick West has applied. You want to apply more to bring the stuff back, but you still haven't actually accounted for any of the visible refraction in the image. We just have to accept that when you fudge the maths and push the numbers up a bit more, it does bring it further back from around the curve. Oh, right, well, that's handy, considering there is absolutely no demonstrable physical evidence on any of the image that any of it's being refracted. If you feel that there's some evidence that the top of Snaefell Mountain is somehow being refracted, then I'd like you to show it me.
As I understand refraction, it is less the higher you go up in altitude. And that, I think, leads to some compression in the image. I would have to learn a lot more about refraction before I sort of put much emphasis behind that. But yeah.
Sure, but what you're saying is there's a...
I actually came on.
Sorry to interrupt. What you're saying, and what everyone concedes on the globe side, despite it being in excess of the standard figures, is that you have a gradient of refraction that is varying in terms of how much you have of it going from top to bottom. And yet, what we end up presented with on the horizon is so perfect in scale that we as flat earthers can measure it with straight lines, and you as globers can measure it with ever increasing amounts of refraction and arc calculations. It doesn't change the fact that none of it appears to be any different than if you were mere yards away from it. None of it is distorted. None of it has changed its position, in spite of the fact that, according to you, it's being, at some stage, applied, that you're having to apply a 33-degree refraction calculation to it, and it's varying as you go from bottom to top. Yet there's absolutely no evidence of this whatsoever, other than in the bottom 3 millimeters of the image where it meets the horizon. And again, I'll stress that nobody to date has actually managed to show me any modelling of that actual refraction. I just get told, well, yeah, we need non-standard refraction, which is basically what you're saying. The standard refraction doesn't quite work. Yeah, we know, we've demonstrated that. It's a humiliation for the globe. But yet, you say, oh, well, we just push the numbers a bit higher and it does work to bring the stuff back from beyond the imaginary curve. Well, what about the actual refraction? When are you guys actually going to account for the stuff that we're trying to detail when you ask us where the beach is? Because it is an actual optical effect that we can see, do have evidence for, and do need an explanation for. Yes, to answer your original question. Do I ignore it? No, it definitely needs an explanation. But so far, you guys, although you use refraction a lot, haven't actually accounted for it in any way, shape or form. The closest person to account for it is Sly Sparkane, and he doesn't even understand how the refraction works on the y-axis gradient. He doesn't understand that. So he's explaining why stuff disappears from the bottom. He's the only one to have done so from the globe side. Betty regrets that deeply. But the point is that none of your models so far actually account for the real refraction that we see.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, is find out what sort of range is, under the category of normal. Like Mick West obviously says about 16%. I think it's higher from what I've read about microwaves, but I can't. Like, I need to do a lot more research and to back that up. So, I actually can't want to talk about stars and stuff.
But no, I'm going to reiterate this point just for one final time. There is refraction demonstrated in the image, and Anthony keeps pointing out time and time again that the way it's accounted for in this MIT reference paper is that it's negligible. And what we actually see in photography, what we actually see in the image, is negligible refraction. Yet you guys keep seeming to think that it's perfectly acceptable to up the figure from a phenomenally huge, not negligible 16% all the way up to 30% just to make it come back from a curve that we don't see. And this to you guys is acceptable whilst ignoring the actual refraction, the negligible refraction we do see demonstrated in the image. You just want to keep bringing stuff back from beyond the curve in perfect proportions by upping the numbers. So like, before you do this, please show me where and why there is refraction on the top of Snaefell, which means that you can apply this maths to it. Because until someone actually says, here you go, here's some actual proof that this thing is being refracted from beyond the curve, from a drop value of in excess of 500 feet. It's 500 feet beyond where it's supposed to be. Well, until I actually see something demonstrating that, Skunk Bay shows distortion. It shows things actually having the effects of refraction applied to them. None of that is observable in the image of Snaefell Mountain. The top of it, for most globers, is fine to just measure it with a straight line and say you can see it. Well, no. In reality, you can't really see any of it. It's all a mirage. It's all looming. Well, this is a farce unless you can actually prove it. Don't just assert that it's looming in perfect proportion and tell me that you've got to up the maths that's already broken twice. Your globe failed to account for the observation. Morgord Lighthouse shouldn't be seen. Fact. Then standard refraction at a, quote, negligible, not so negligible at all value also fails. None of it so far actually demonstrates any proof or evidence that any of this is actually happening. Then we move on to the models and non-standard refraction, like you're saying, oh, well, Mick West is modest. Modest? My arse. None of it's affected by refraction. We do see observable effects of refraction, and none of you on the globe side have accounted for them. What we say in that respect is we don't need to. We can take our straight line measurements and ignore the single millimetre of refraction that's actually demonstrable. It doesn't need to be accounted for when we do our simple trig and straight line measurements. You guys need to up it to 30% into non-standard refraction just to get it to be visible. I mean, it's a joke.
Are you with Anthony in reading that paper, like that single word negligible, to mean that?
No, what I see in the actual picture is a single band about 1 millimetre high that is at the horizon line that actually obscures things. In this instance, it doesn't actually obscure them, it mirrors them with a inferior mirage, exactly as that paper describes the effects of refraction causing in extreme circumstances. In this instance, we seem to have a consistent band at the horizon, which, depending on circumstances of weather, i.e. the weather conditions, sometimes gets bigger and actually obscures it with what looks like the sea below it being refracted up. Sometimes, if you get it on a really clear day, you get an inferior mirage with a band going through the entire image in a perfectly straight line that refracts things below it. But this is happening in 1 millimetre of the image. I call that negligible amounts of refraction. You guys literally need refraction to apply to the entire island. without any evidence of it whatsoever. Yet you want to fuss over this 1 millimetre and demand that I account for it. You guys haven't accounted for it in any way, shape or form. Even when you're upping the model to 30% refraction, you still don't account for that single negligible millimetre of actual refraction. So why demand that I do?
Well, the claim is that we shouldn't be able to see the bottom of the lighthouse.
That's your claim.
And I haven't actually done them. No, flat earthers would say that you should not be able to see.
No, we say we see stuff.
Hang on.
You say it shouldn't be seen because it's obscured
Sorry.
by curve. That's not my argument. What are you talking about?
On a curved earth, you shouldn't see it.
Well, how is that my argument?
On a curved...
So that's not my argument. That's not what flat earthers say. That's what a globehead would say. So do you want to just correct yourself?
I'm just thinking, hold on, yeah.
So flat earthers would say on a curved earth, no, we live on a flat plane, we say we just see stuff. Don't accuse me of your nonsense. I hate this. Don't accuse me of your nonsense. I don't say on a curved earth anything.
Just calm down. Just relax.
No, don't accuse me of your nonsense. I don't say on a curved earth. I don't think there is any curve. You do. How dare you accuse me of your nonsense? What flat earthers say is on a curved earth we shouldn't see this. No, you say on a curved earth the lighthouse should be obscured. I say we see it because it's there. I do love these little silences after somebody's bullshit's been pointed out to them.
Just relax, Nathan. Wow.
No, I don't like people telling me that things that I should not see aren't there or obscured by earth curve that we don't see, and then being told that that's my nonsense. It's not. It's yours. Accept your own nonsense that you believe. Don't tell me it's mine. That will get me angry, absolutely. It's your nonsense. You accept it. I don't.
All right, let's change the topic.
No. I want to stay on this topic about the nonsense you believe. You believe you see a lighthouse that is not there, correct?
When you say not there, do you mean...
Oh, here we go, into the not there. Tim Osman, eat
geometrically?
your heart out. Do you want me to bring up the definition of there? Anthony, can you type in
if you're
there
saying-
into Wikipedia and just bring up the definition for me so we can explain to this guy what the word there means, please? Is that possible?
If you are saying that we see it, but it is not physically where we see it, then of course I agree.
You agree that it is not physically there to be seen.
What we see is not physically where it is.
No, what we see is not physically
lower
there at
geometrically.
all on your bullshit model. Take your time.
Oh, I'm just waiting for you to calm down.
I'm perfectly calm.
But
I'm waiting for you to accept that we see something in the form of this lighthouse that on your model that you've just accused me of basically believing in, which I don't, on a curved earth, as you asserted as flat earthers seem to say, which we do not. On a curved earth, you can't see that lighthouse because there's a 165-foot wall blocking your view, and it is about 500 feet below your feet. That's what you believe in your model. It's not physically appearing. It isn't physically there. You can't physically see it, and yet we do. Therefore, you think you can see something that is not there.
When you say 500 feet below our feet, why is that relevant?
Because you believe you live on a curved earth, and I think that's ridiculous.
Right.
If you believe that that lighthouse is 500 plus feet below your feet, you're insane. We see it. There's nothing blocking the view. There is a tiny band, about a millimetre, a negligible amount of refraction, which you guys fail to account for despite having huge numbers, huge amounts of equations to be done to account for, specifically for refraction. Yet you can't account for that little band at all. So, we're back to the lighthouse that isn't there in your world. It isn't there. You can't see it. But you think you can see it.
If you are standing on the top of Mount Everest, you're like, what is it, 9 Ks or something up? And let's say the nearest mountain is only 8 kilometers high. Can you see it? Even though it's 1,000 meters below you?
In your world, Do you have a direct line of sight with the lighthouse? Can you see it? Or is something obscuring your view of it?
It's refracted. I can see
Sorry,
it.
I'll ask the question again. Can you see the lighthouse, or is something in the way?
I can see the lighthouse because the light refracts.
Is there something blocking your view of the lighthouse? Why are you denying your own model? You started so cordially, and when it gets to the bullshit nonsense that you hate to have to concede, you want to be tricky about refraction. Let's forget refraction for a moment. We use straight lines of sight in our model and can account for these things. In your model, you don't. Now, the reason you don't is because it's not physically able to be seen. The reason is because there is a wall blocking your view. Now, I want you to concede that you cannot physically see this thing. Regardless of how it appears, it's not actually physically visible because there's something in the way. Unless you're Superman, you can't see through walls. Correct?
The amount of refraction brings it back
Let's
into
not
view.
worry
so
about
you can see
refraction.
it.
Let's not worry about refraction. Let's
Well,
start with
if you're
your
drawing-
model. Let's not apply any refraction. The refraction hasn't dealt with the single millimetre of actual refraction that's there. You've already conceded that. So let's just ignore your refraction, as it doesn't actually deal with the refraction that we see evidenced in the image. So let's just start with your model. Your model is a sphere. In your model, can you see this lighthouse? Yes or no?
If you are drawing a straight line, not a line of sight.
That's
because
what a
the
line of
light
sight
bends.
is. A line of sight is a straight
no.
line. Light travels in straight lines.
No,
Yes, it does.
we've
Light
just
travels in
agreed.
straight
I thought you
lines.
agreed that refraction is a thing.
I can see a
Do
millimetre
you
of
not
it in the
agree that
image,
refraction's a thing?
which you have failed to account for. So you're still trying to bring it back onto refraction. I'm trying to show you and the audience something that you won't concede to, because you're already into your Band-Aid. Now, I want you to accept and concede that in your model, pre-refraction, we physically cannot
Pre-refraction.
see this lighthouse.
You can see the tippy top of it, but you can't see the whole lighthouse. If you draw a straight line.
Right, so you can't see it.
So pure truth. Without refraction, no. You can just,
Right.
you can like literally see the top 2 or 3
Finally,
meters.
so unless you apply refraction, which does not account for the actual visible refraction, you can't see it. It's not there.
Well, that's where we disagree. You seem to think refraction doesn't bring it back, and I think it does.
Sorry, where we actually have the effects of refraction is below this lighthouse. Nobody so far has actually accounted for that refraction. What you do is bring back the top of the lighthouse and refract the entire island. Up to 33% numbers applied in terms of the refraction to bring it back at varying degrees from beyond a curve that we don't see. So your refraction maths is used to cover up the fact that nothing is actually falling around the curve of the Earth further and further away from your perspective. That's what you use it for. However, in the image, there is demonstrable, observable refraction, and your maths doesn't account for it. So I'm not that interested in you getting around a curve that we can't see and an image in perfect scale using a refraction calculation that doesn't actually account for the refraction that's seen. It just is a band-aid for a globe Earth with a curve that isn't visible. Until you can actually demonstrate that any of this is having any refraction effects applied to it, it doesn't matter, especially when you're not actually covering the fact that there is refraction and your refraction maths doesn't do anything to account for it, specifically in the area that this lighthouse is in. So unless your refraction maths actually shows what happens to this lighthouse, why would I pay the slightest bit of attention? Hey, massive shout out to Joey Slive for the super chat. Why would I pay any attention to your refraction maths? They don't account for the refraction that we see, so why does it make any difference? So let's go back to the failings of your model. Your model shows that the lighthouse is obscured. There's a wall in the way. We can't see through walls. Therefore, your model fails. You need refraction, you rely on refraction, yet you can't actually demonstrate that there is any refraction to anything other than a negligible amount of the image.
So you're saying that the, let's say, 20 feet above the surface or something from the lighthouse to St. Bees is refracted, whatever you call it, a millimetre, but whatever, like 20 feet. Are you saying that the light then above that from the lighthouse isn't refracted? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that above that band of obvious, demonstrable, observable refraction, above that, no. I believe we see things in straight lines, and this is demonstrable when we model it and take measurements with straight lines.
Okay, so that's where we disagree. So you're saying anything up to 100, 200 feet or whatever doesn't refract?
No, I'm saying that when we modelled this observation, we took straight line measurements to the things at varying different distances, and it worked. It scaled, it worked. When you guys model it, you apply up to 30% refraction to bring it back from behind the curve of the Earth, and then you apply arc calculations to something that happens to scale perfectly when modelled on a flat plane. So you've got very careful arc calculations for things that coincidentally present themselves as though they were on a flat plane. Yet you want me to believe they're not on a flat plane, we just happen to see them because 30% refraction is applied in varying degrees up and down this image. Why? Why should I accept any of that without any evidence of any of it having any effects of refraction other than the negligible amount at the horizon?
But we're arguing over the thickness of the horizon, are we? That's what I'm getting from you, is that you're saying that there's only a small amount at the bottom of the lighthouse, so, well, very close to the horizon, that's refracted, and then the higher you go, oops, hang on, the higher you go, it doesn't get refracted.
No, what I'm saying is in our model, there is a negligible amount of refraction, and we can ignore that when measuring anything above it. In your model, the entire island is refracted.
But why wouldn't it be refracted?
Because we live on a flat plane and can take straight line measurements and don't need to apply arc calculations or assume that there is a curve that we can't see. We don't need to. That's why we modelled it on a flat plane and keep saying we can take simple straight lines to what is coincidentally scaled perfectly from beyond the curve. Why would I accept any of this shite?
Hang on 1 second. I'm going to bring up a photo. Where is it? Give me 2 seconds.
No worries.
Whilst he's getting 2 seconds, Nath, there's this super chat.
Oh, thanks, Thayla. Thank you. People super chat when I'm right in the thick of it and I'm not paying attention to the chat. But thank you.
Did you see the Joey Sylvie one as well?
I did. I shouted him out.
I was just answering the phone. Whilst he's looking up his thing, have you noticed, Nath, that when they talk about refraction, they always fail to tell us about light bending up, not always bending down? In the refraction calculator, there's not the expression at the beginning of the algebra or the sum that says plus or minus. And that kind of needs to be there when light can bend up as well as down. I don't know if you want to present my screen so that we can show people what happened with refraction soundly.
Not yet. I'm just waiting for... I keep forgetting your name. I'm really sorry.
Glenn. Ruiz,
Glenn.
whatever.
Sorry, Glenn. Glenn's waiting to just present something, so if you can wait, you're just a bit of a queue. Are you ready yet, Glenn? Let me know when you are.
Hang on. Just going to share my screen 1 second. Where are we? Hang on, so we are. Screen share.
Yep,
all right, there we go.
Yep. You're displaying. If you're in the Hangout, just click on
Am I
this.
presented?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so this is apparently the world record long distance photography, and it's taken from Andorra or something. So it's called Pic de Fenestrelle, and it's looking something like 400 and something k's northeast towards France. And basically they're saying you can see a mountain 443 kilometers away. And I've seen a couple of flat earthers actually say that this proves a flat earth. Like there's no way you can see 443 k's away. You know, the refraction would have to be stupid. What do you think of that though? This mountain that he's standing on was 2,820 meters high. Do you think you can see 443 k's?
275 miles. I don't see any reason why not. No. I mean, yes, you are again going to be suffering a different effect of refraction. None of this we're given the exact science for. All of the science for refraction has been co-opted into bringing things back from behind a curve in perfect scale, instead of actually explaining the effects of seeing something that is 275 miles away in a larger scale than it should be. Now, again, Rob Skeever has done excellent demonstrations of the atmospheric lensing effect, where you get buildings that are considerably further away looking 2 or 3 times the size that they should because of atmospheric lensing. Now, I don't understand this. I'm not going to profess to be any expert other than watching a couple of Rob videos on this very subject, but I do see it demonstrated in the things that are presented to me by people like Ranty. So only last night he showed me some pictures that were akin to the demonstration that Anthony put together of the Blackpool Tower from 30 miles. But then he showed me from 20 miles, and it was considerably tighter and cleaner and looked nicer and sharper. So you're suffering less effects of refraction as you're at less distances. So it's not like I'm going to deny that these effects are there, and they are multiple in number in terms of what they do to an image. But it doesn't alter the fact that when you account for it on curved Earth, it doesn't actually account for any of these effects. It just brings stuff back from further and further beyond a curved Earth in perfect scale, I might add. Anyway, how you doing, Lottie? Can you hear us? Sorry,
it's Dawn. I just wanted to apologise for the mute the other day, Nathan.
Oh, right. That's a shame.
This Dawn Shredder?
Yeah. Well, he won't be joining again.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, I kept seeing you kick him out. That was amusing. What was I going to say? Yeah, sorry, this photo, am I still being presented, by the way?
You are.
Yeah, cool. So this photo, what I wanted to actually point out was, so the mountain in the middle, the one in bold, Pic Gaspard, 443 kilometers away and 3,867 meters high. And we're standing on a mountain that's 2,820 meters high. The question for a flat earther is then the mountain to the left, Grand Ferrand, is 392 kilometers away. So it's a little bit closer, but it is only 2,758 meters high. So the question is, why does it appear higher in the image? Why is it the highest mountain in the image?
So like I just said, you get atmospheric lensing. Things that are considerably further away appear at a certain distance to get bigger. It's bizarre. I don't have a concise scientific explanation for it, and neither do you.
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
It's application of the Skunk Bay footage. We see that at times the peninsula of land on Skunk Bay is thin, like a pencil line. It's fat, but in the background, there are times when the mountain in the background looks fat, and then it drops down to the thinness of a pencil. But because it's a continuous solving of the equation, and it's subject to the distance that you're at. Sometimes it's thinner, sometimes it's fatter or stretching, and sometimes it's shrinking. And the exact same thing is happening here. This is refraction. This is flat refraction. Stretching and shrinking.
Can I just turn that back on you, Glenn? Right? Can I just turn this back on you? So according to your maths, all of the image of the Isle of Man is having the same effect, refraction. Why is it that all of the mountains are in perfect scale? This is our point. So in this image, we see the effects of refraction distorting the sizes of things. Why is it that we get a perfect representation, coincidentally perfectly modelable on a flat plane, of the Isle of Man?
Sorry, I'm not claiming this image is distorted.
So are you claiming that the mountains have physically changed sizes? Are you claiming that they've physically changed their actual sizes? Or are you claiming that it's not just... Because saying it's not distorted would be to say that these mountains are physically different sizes. I.e. they're not the size that they are claimed to be.
I thought my point was fairly obvious, is that this Pic Gaspard is another 50 Ks further around the curve. And you're dropping off pretty exponentially after a few hundred Ks. That's why it appears lower. You would have to have some extreme, if you draw a straight line from here to Grand Ferrand, you've got some extreme refraction and some extreme atmospheric events happening there, right? To appear to go down while the mountain goes up by, over a kilometer.
I agree.
That, to me, like this, I think this is pretty good proof of curvature.
Well, I would say it's a proof of refraction, but what I'm asking you to then, with the evidence that we have captured ourselves, why is it that in that image we don't see any of these effects of refraction? Why is it that it scales in perfect symmetry? Why is that? Why don't we see any of these effects on the Isle of Man when there's so much refraction maths being applied to it?
I haven't seen any of your hangouts that talk about that it's in perfect scale. I haven't looked at it.
Well, it is.
And I would have to think about it as well. Yeah,
well,
I would have to think about what that means as well.
I'll tell you. It's so perfect that the rumpus can take a per pixel calculation and work out perfectly where everything is in the image by taking trig. Only on the left and right, of course. Going up and down, you must apply arc calculations, of course, because you must assume immediately that it's all refracted, because obviously it's going further and further around the curve. So you must apply the arc calculation immediately. So therefore, no direct lines of sight with anything. Immediate arc calculations up and down. That's what you have to do. But it doesn't change the fact that those arc calculations are still calculated and worked out. And they happen to work out how it seems to appear flat. That's what you're doing with those arc calculations.
Nathan, can you check Super Chat?
That to me says the model works, doesn't it? If we apply what actually happens and it fits the observation, what's the problem?
Well, because in this image, there's evidence of things being distorted at different
It's Ghostbusters 2, the ice cream's in the fridge. There's a reason why you're a failed actor and you're driving Tesco vans. Goodbye.
Hey.
Nathan, do you want to check Super Chat?
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. Why did he boot the only globe head?
Did he?
Yeah. Thanks, Steve Anthony. Booted the only globe head we have.
I can add him back on via Skype if you want, Nathan.
No. I don't know the guy.
Well, in that case, it's worth an apology that he got sniped.
Yeah, well, I didn't snipe him. Steve Anthony did. Anyway. That's very disappointing because we were in a good conversation with that guy. Oh well, hope he'll join tomorrow.
Do you know, I was waiting patiently to ask him why is it that it's always light that bends down? We know that light bends up, but I was going to ask him why is it not in the equation to allow for light bending up? It just doesn't happen.
It does. You want me to explain it to you in their model? You want their explanation?
Nick's saying that I sniped him. If I did snipe him, I accidentally did it. It must have been clicked at the moment that Thingy left. And if I did accidentally snipe you, apologies. It was meant to be Steve Anthony. It may well have been me. If it was, I apologise. I didn't do it intentionally.
Anyway, back on to refraction in the globe model. So again, this isn't actually accounting for anything we see in terms of visible, observable, demonstrable evidence of refraction. This is their nonsense in terms of bringing things back from the curve, beyond the curve, I should say. So just to get that distinction in early, when they claim light is bending round the curve of the Earth to bring things back up from behind the curve that is obscuring your view and at various different drop values, when they do that, they would account for the light moving up as a simple lessening of the maths applied in terms of refraction. So that would mean that the light in your line of sight, I don't know what other words to use, the light that you can see in front of you is actually going less around the curve, therefore appearing to go up. But it's not actually up, because up is only a deviation from a flat plane measurement. So if you're going around a curve, you can just curve it slightly less or slightly more to have it go, according to your eye line, up or down. So they don't need to account for what you call it, because that's a deviation from a flat plane. So that's just it's a Weasley way of getting out of that tricky little detail, that light does indeed bend up as well as down.
Yo,
Anyway, that's their explanation. How you doing, Natsec? Massive shout out to Vicky.
I'm
Thank you for
very
the super
good.
chat.
Good, thanks.
Good to have you.
Just so you guys know, you can add people back into the Hangout where you have the Google Hangouts page and you have that sniping section. You can add people back in into the conversation.
How do I do it?
On that Google Hangouts page where you have that little chat pop up and you kick people out from there. On the one of the symbols where you can see like a person icon, I think it is, you can actually add people through it and then just add him back in and he'll be able to join back into the conversation.
Thanks, man.
I can try it if you like.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
I'm having a look. I'll see if I can get him back in. Add people. Oh, right. So on the add people link.
One second, I'm just eating at the moment.
I don't see him in the list of people that I can add.
There should be a search bar for names. You type his name in there and it should have a pop down or something.
Okay.
I'll give it a shot.
Oh, what was his name now? Hang on.
Ah, fuck, I can't do it myself. Oh, wait.
Ruhif.
While you're doing that, I might do a quick link. So, hope you're enjoying the debate thus far. If you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, as Daylo, Ohio, and Vicky most recently did, and there was one other whose name I've forgotten already, but thank you very much for hitting the super chat. If you would like to support this channel also, there is obviously a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live, but also a link in the info box once these videos have been rendered. Most importantly though, if you'd like to join the debate, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as this increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. There is approximately 1 hour left on this live broadcast.
I think Ruif might be back in. I think Ruif, if you go back to hangouts.google.com, you'll see a list of recent conversations. You can click the video with the webcam icon, and it should take you straight back in.
Happy days. If not, just join tomorrow's and you can just click on the link.
And accept my apologies for accidentally sniping you.
What's Steve's problem? He could have happily... You're allowed to join, Steve, and moan at me if you feel that I'm doing something wrong.
I think it's because you didn't welcome him in with welcoming arms and sit him down and have a brew with him and be really, really nice to him. I think he wanted to be petted.
Oh, well, you just got to be patient if someone else is talking. You know, I'm more keen to shout out people like Vicky who've just given me money than, you know, interrupt somebody that's talking. But they're still going to take second priority to somebody who's actually got an opinion and has joined the show, because it's nerve-wracking. I'm sure Glenn's... Oh, mate, he didn't seem nervous, but I would be. You know, it's intimidating. So... You're live in front of an audience, although I didn't realise that at the beginning. If you're going to share the link with people, please make it clear. Although it does give him a disclaimer. When he joined the Hangout, we would have said to him. Anyway, nonetheless, you know, he's it's pretty intense. So, you know, if someone like Steve joins, I'm not going to cut him off. You know, because I know Steve is. I'm fairly confident it was him. It was. I waited till there was a gap, and then for some reason he just moaned about me working or being a failed actor or something. I don't get it. So yeah, feel free to join again, Steve, if you want to moan at me. You're welcome to. Everyone been sniped?
No, I'm here, but for some reason my dog's growling at nothing, and I don't want him on camera, on mic, growling at nothing because he's an idiot.
Yeah, fair enough. That was a good chat about refraction. Yeah, just to me, they're co-opting what we actually have as an effect that is demonstratable, and have turned it into something to bring things back from a curve that we don't see. I'm really glad of Philip joining, because when he said the only bit I can't actually model is the actual refraction that's visible, that was like, wow, nice that you can actually confess to it, but wouldn't that be the first thing you would expect the model to actually be able to resolve? Four people on the panel, lots of dead air.
Yeah, Jamie asked for 10 minutes. He's had 10 minutes. Are you there, Jamie?
I'm just trying to help out, old man.
Really appreciate it, actually.
He says someone might have blocked him. When he came in, does Ruith have an actual icon? Like as his symbol that pops up like mine? Or is it like a blank default?
I think it was a blank default one.
Okay, cool. So I was thinking maybe I might have him blocked, but I don't.
Nath, they were having bets in chat about how long it'd take you to get triggered, and I don't think you technically got triggered, so all bets were off. Nathan didn't get triggered.
I could get annoyed, you know. The thing that pisses me off, and I'm not going to lie, is when somebody asserts their bullshit at my feet. Like you guys on the Flat Earth say we shouldn't see the lighthouse. No. It's like, what an outrage. I think we just see the lighthouse and there's a tiny amount of refraction below it for a millimetre. That's it. You guys think it's not even there, physically can't be seen, blocked by Earth curve, below your feet. That's what you believe. And then you've got maths to account for it. But in that particular location, there is actual refraction going on. So it's like, well, account for that first. Might do some shout outs to chat because I'm having a one-way conversation. So yeah, let's see who's in chat.
Well, it's. I was looking at what Ruhif was saying in the back chat. He was saying that someone's got him blocked, and I think it might be because I can't add people after I've kicked them. It might be duff info that I was given. So that was what I was just reading what was being said in the background because it was pinging. So yeah, give some shout outs.
I will do. Scroll up a bit. Craig Gifford, nice to see you. David Gilbert. Says, bye Globe, lol. Granty, good to see you, my friend. Stopping traffic in my Rasta hat. Oxy, good to see you. Artificial Origin, new one on me. Nice to have you on our show. Thanks for being here. Joey, how do you say his name? Slive, is it? How do you say Joey's name? Should really be able to say it as he's hit the super chat. Thank you very much. Physics Warrior, nice to see you. Was good to have you here. Multi Tom Tom joining. Andres, flat as a pancake. Dark Star, good to see you. Do you even Lottie, bro? Thanks for being here. Ron Burgundy, good to see you. Agent Detective, thanks for the advert. P. Mars, good to see you. James Collins. David, no proof has ever been offered. Don't know what the context is. Beyond the imaginary bird bath. No spam, please.
Yeah,
Ruhif? Said off air. Yeah, what I do, Ruhif, is I basically have the hangout go through OBS, which gives me a second layer of control. I might as well talk about this now, because Hori Sheet was talking about this yesterday. So apparently, not that I realised this, Sun and Moon were porn bombed, which I've been probably porn bombed 4 or 5 times, not to any massive detriment. But on one occasion it actually stopped my main channel from being able to live stream, which was a bit of a pain in the arse. But other than that, it was discussed on Hori Sheet Show, if I can get my tongue around it. And he was explaining, or Arwen was saying, oh, well, Nathan gets away with giving out the link. You know, why would it be the case that Sun and Moon can't just do the same thing? And obviously Hori explained that I'm using OBS. However, while I've got the screen up, I will actually show anybody who's using these Hangout pages, if you're watching, hopefully this information will be useful. But you may or may not notice, if you watch the show frequently, that when I share my screen, there's 2 tabs. It says share your entire screen. Well, yeah, if you share your entire screen, it will basically put everything that's on my tabs up. So I might as well do it. It's no harm. If I share screen 1, you can see in the Hangout, everybody can see everything that's on my main monitor, all of my OBS, everything. Which, if I had the Hangout running, that would mean everyone got to see the Hangout key. And if it's a Google Hangout, like people get sniped on this show. Oh, got Neil deGrasse Tyson joining. Anyway, so like people can join this particular show and snipe people. If you snipe the host out of their own Hangout, you've then got 5 minutes of uninterrupted time to do what you like in their Hangout, play pornography, whatever you like. So yeah, it's not a good idea to give out the link to all and sundry. But the way that people normally do it is because they're conscious of the fact they don't want strangers in their Hangout. What they will actually do is just share their screen by accident, or a guest will. So I'm going to show this once more time to show what you should actually do. So when you click on your screen share button, rather than just going to your entire screen and sharing absolutely everything to absolutely everybody, including the Hangout key for some rogue troll to copy literally by hand, pause the page, write it down by hand, and then type it in and join your Hangout. Whereas if you click on application window, it just gives you all of the varying different tabs that you've got. So you click on whatever application that you want and click share, and that's all you'll actually get. You just get whatever application. So it means there's no chance of showing the Hangout key on a random window that happens to be on your screen. But it's normally going to be the person that's only got one screen, i.e. one monitor, to actually monitor this stuff on, and they're going to just be, click on screen share, yes, share my whole screen, and straight away you get the descending video feedback and the Hangout key at the top for any person to just nick. So yes, it's definitely not a good idea to share your entire screen. Always share by application window. Anyway, that's my little blurb over. Hopefully that was useful to somebody who's going to be sharing someone else's Hangout key in the future. I've no doubt this will not solve the problem, and this will continue until Hangouts change their software, which is probably never. So there we go. That was a public service announcement by Nathan Oakley.
Yeah, I missed the days before they had that kick anyone feature. God, shit, that was annoying. Especially when it first came up, you could not hold a Hangout for more than 20 minutes, and oh god.
Could I just correct something that I've seen, some misrepresentation in chat from a dodgy baller named Ron Burgundy? I'm not familiar. Ron Burgundy said that even Riley admits that Lottie won the bet. Riley's never been clear on what the actual bet was. As far as I understand the bet, Ranty's won it. That doesn't mean that Ranty has won it, but the way I understand the bet, Ranty did win the bet. Might not have the accurate representation of the bet, but I wanted to clear it up because Ron said that I admitted that Lottie won the bet. I did not at all. As far as I can see, Ranty won the bet and he won it convincingly. So, Ron, stop telling pork pies.
We may get our Australian friend back, judging by what the Natsec's saying. You can probably see it from the audience. So if you caught that as well, Anthony. So hopefully he'll join us again with a different account. We'll see if that works.
Right, I'm getting messages in the background from somewhere, but I don't know where it's coming from.
It'll be in that Hangout. where you edit him back in. You can just go to the settings for it, I think, and get rid of the notification buzz.
Excellent.
Yeah. So what were you guys talking
That
about
worked.
before I joined? That's all good, man.
Refraction. So the general crux
refraction.
of it is the entire island of the Isle of Man is refracted, every last bit of it, in your model. In our model, there's about 1 millimetre of negligible refraction, which we don't really need to account for when we take straight lines and simple trig measurements to get the altitude and distances to any of the observable things on the island. So that was kind of where we rounded out, and yeah.
Oh, looks like he might be him, possible.
Hooray!
Back.
How you
Go
doing?
back.
Good to have you back.
Thank you.
That's
This is
tenacity
my
for
daughter's
you.
account.
So Anthony, I
What
don't
was
know
that,
if you,
Dana?
did you want to, just to bring you guys back on track, you were on the not accounting for up, so you know what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Sure. Do you agree that light bends up as well as down?
You talking to me or Jamie? Or,
Glenn, yeah.
Yeah, it bends up, yeah. That's what causes mirages, right?
Sorry, I'm just being distracted by someone. Should be on the edge there. It's under that.
I'll agree with you. Yes.
Sorry, I was just being asked where the paintbrush was from yesterday. We have a new joiner.
Please forgive Dawn. Hey, Dawn.
Welcome, Dawn, my friend. It's been very quiet tonight, Nathan.
Yes, nice and calm.
Okay, so back to the question then.
Check
So we do agree that light bends up as well as down, Glenn, yeah?
Yeah, but not as frequently.
So in the in algebra, when they use expressions in maths to represent the reality of the world in which we live, would you agree with me that the correct algebraic expression for what we see when light bends up as well as down, in this instance, whether it be 7/6r or 4/3r or whatever numbers you want to use, the expression should be plus or minus at the beginning? Agreed?
No, because I don't think it's an equal thing. I don't think it bends up as often or as much as it does bend down.
Okay, so Nath, if you present my screen, do you recognize this video?
I think I saw that the other day. Was it one of Soundly's or something?
Yeah, this is Refraction Soundly, and Soundly. And what he shows in his time-lapse video is the lights bouncing up and down. So what I'll do is I'll just slow the speed down because I sped it up in the original video, but for demonstration purposes now it's better. All I did was I put an arbitrary line in just to give you a point of reference. And obviously, the further the lights go away from you, basically you're going to see more of an effect of refraction because you need distance for the light to travel through the atmosphere. The ones nearest to us don't do much movement, but the ones further away do. Now, the point is, as we go through his video, with an arbitrary line in there, initially it looks like they're all bending down, therefore curvature of the Earth.
Your line's not great, by the way.
What's wrong with my line?
Like a few of the lights are above it, and you haven't got the first one.
Yeah, that's the point. It's just an arbitrary line. It doesn't really matter where the line goes. It just means that you've got a point of reference to see whether the light is bending down following any curvature, or is light actually bending up. Now, what he's now showing is this one is in the up position. This is up, up, up. But these last three are borderline down. Now, as the clip goes on, you can see that they start to flip above the line. Now, when you have a point of reference, which is the line itself, then if they start in the down position, but they can be seen going into the up position, that clearly tells you that light must be bending up as well as bending down. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying is no, because your first light is always up.
It doesn't matter. I'm not talking about the first light. I'm talking about these lights that are further away from you.
Yeah, they bend, but they don't
bear with me. I'm
bend.
going to answer this call. Nathan, if you just carry on for me.
Can I talk about the stars now? Because that's actually what I came on to talk about.
I don't see why not. Go ahead.
Cool. All right, so everyone knows what Polaris is. That's the North Pole star. And if you are standing at the North Pole, then it's 90 degrees above you. The angle of elevation from you to Polaris will always be equal to your latitude. Do you agree with those observations? It's pretty well known sort of phenomenon.
Bear with me a second. How are you doing, Haunted House? Can you hear us? Can you say a quick hello? Give you a couple more seconds.
Got your finger on the eject button.
Sorry, Haunted, not quick enough.
Yeah, so the observations for Polaris is basically that if whatever latitude you are at, that is the elevation that you see Polaris at. So if you're at the North Pole, it's directly above you, 90 degrees. If you are 85 degrees north, then the elevation of Polaris is 85 degrees. Let's do some trig, actually. Got a bit of paper. Give me 2 seconds to draw this. North Pole. All right, can everyone see that? Oops. Oh, do you want to present me or?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Nathan, you'll need to present them to everyone.
I'm good. I'm on the case. Don't worry.
Cool. Is it reversed or is it readable?
No, it's all good.
Oh, good. Okay. So you got the Polaris up here somewhere. The dude at the North Pole has to look straight up, whereas a guy that's at 85 degrees north, the angle of elevation in here is 85 degrees. So we can work out how far this guy is, the distance between the two guys, between the North Pole and the 85 degrees latitude. And it's about 555 Ks, I think. And it's about 555 Ks, I think. Oh, it's about headphones. 500. Headphones, dude. There we go. So we can do some trig. 85 degrees, oops, 85. We can do some trig to work out how high Polaris is above the ground, right? Do we agree with that? Simple trig?
I don't know. Have you ever been at the North Pole?
No, but it's a pretty common observation. Like everyone in the Northern Hemisphere can make this observation.
From directly underneath the North Star?
Yeah.
Really?
Wherever you are on the Earth, on the Northern Hemisphere, your latitude is equal to the elevation of the North Star of Polaris. I mean, you can Google this if you like now, but it's a pretty common observation.
Sure, but sorry. So, the starting point you've said at the North Pole. So is that something? It's obviously not something I've done. Is that common that people literally go to the North Pole, look directly above them, and see the North Star directly above them?
It's not common, but I mean, if you watch the rotating sky at night, you'll see that it centers around this star, right?
Yeah, no, I don't dispute that. I understand how Polaris works, but I'm just saying the bit that your starting point is that if you stand at the North Pole and look directly up, you see the North Pole star directly above your head. But having not experienced that, and you're saying it's not very common, I mean, maybe you've got an example of someone doing just that.
Will Google suffice for tonight? Or just even a tentative acceptance?
It's just not something I've never Googled what does it look like to look at the North Star from the North Pole. And, I have to assume on your diagram that it's directly above your head. I'm not suggesting that it is or isn't. I'm just saying it's not something I've ever experienced.
Okay, that'll be something then that you can Google for yourself later. It's a common observation.
Should we
Anyway, so from
assume?
that-
I mean, if you want to say, assuming we're on a globe and assuming that we trust all the globe
this
model.
is assuming we're on a flat. This is assuming we're on a flat plane.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know it
it's,
either way. This is the problem. I don't know the starting point of your example. I hate to be pedantic, but
sorry.
you know, it's
No,
just
no,
one of
this
those.
is-
I don't know for certain that if I stand at the right at the North Pole and look directly above my head, or lie flat on my back and look up, will will Polaris be directly above my head? I don't know if that's yes or no answer. I just don't know.
Okay. I'll leave you to Google that later. Just for now, there's at least a tentative acceptance of it. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. All right. So the circumference of the Earth. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that because I'm assuming flat Earth. The distance between the 85th degree latitude and the North Pole is 555 k's. And again, you can verify this later when you play it back. That's fine. But we've got 555 k's and 85 degrees latitude. We should be able to work out what the height of Polaris is above the ground. Just simple trig, right? So x, what is it? 10 85 equals x over 555. Second. 5, 10. All right, so Polaris should be 6,344 k's, 6,344 kilometers. Should be that far above the Earth, just with simple trig. Agree so far? Just
Agree
the
with
maths
the
of it?
maths that you've done? Sure.
Okay. So again, assuming that the latitude that you're at is equivalent to the elevation of Polaris. If you are at the equator, at what elevation is Polaris? 0 degrees. How far are you away from the North Pole if Polaris is at 0 degrees? The answer is infinity. So let's just say 1 degree above the horizon, right? Would that be better?
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, cool. So we're going to say 1 degree rather than 0. So you're at the horizon. You're at the equator. And should I do a different diagram? Hold on. All right, so that's not to scale, obviously. But over here, you're at the equator. And this is only 1 degree because Polaris is on the horizon, basically. So let's do some more trig. And 1 degree equals 6,344 over y. That's 1 degree. Oops, that's my calc. Six, 3, 4, 4 divided by 110 equals, which makes the equator 363,000 kilometers away. Oops. Yeah. Does everyone follow that?
Yeah, I can follow it.
Do you disagree with the math?
No, I don't disagree with the math.
Okay. Does it match observations? Is the equator 363,000 kilometers away from?
No, I appreciate where you're going with this.
Yeah. Sorry, you appreciate where I'm going?
Yeah,
Or you
absolutely.
don't know?
It doesn't work in
Yeah.
the flat Earth model if you assume that the thing is physical and you can take an exact measurement from it and that etc. 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 I get it. It doesn't work.
So you don't think physical? You don't think? I'm not sure what you mean by not physical.
Well,
It's
an
not there,
intangible
like the light's
object
not
unless
there.
you're going to tell me that you've been to Polaris and you know what it is and how it represents itself and how it appears in our
No, but I
field
mean,
of view and all those sorts of
there
things.
is a light there.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
That's all you know. There's a light there.
Yeah, and we can triangulate the light using trigonometry, which we've just done.
Yeah, it's an intangible object. You don't know what it is or how it's representing itself.
What does it matter what it is? You can triangulate it.
Okay, so
whatever it is.
if there was a
what it's made out of.
So if I was to sit in this chair and triangulate what I see, I'm triangulating the light from a projector. Well, that's not something that's physically there. It's just a light projection of something from a machine behind me. Well, that's, quite important.
But you're still seeing the light where it is. You're still triangulating the light off the screen.
I'm giving you an answer.
Or the wall.
Hold on. I'm giving you an answer. So,
okay,
if I triangulate something on my projection screen, does that mean I know the location of its source?
No.
Right.
You know where
so
you're
I'm triangulating a light on my projection screen, right? What does that mean? Absolutely nothing if I don't know what the origin of the source is, or how the source works, or how it presents that light. So if you just want to do a triangulation on a light, I'll stick you in a darkened room, stick a projection screen on you, and tell you to do calculations on things I project in front of you. And you'll be really content when you do the calculations and work out how it works. It's like, well, you don't know what the light is or where it's coming from.
If I'm triangulating against your screen, I know where your screen is and how far away it is.
So I give you a two-dimensional representation of space on my screen. You're going to tell me that you know how it all works and where it's coming from, even though it's coming from a projector behind you.
Yeah, if I sit on your couch and I sit on the left seat and it's this angle, and I sit on the other side of the couch and it's that angle.
Right. So again, so you're saying that if I've got an accurate enough representation of what space is on my projection screen, you know where it is. You don't. You know how it's represented by my projector on my projection screen. That's all you know.
I know how far away your screen is. Yes.
Right, but that's all you know.
You don't
know how the computer has represented that image in the first place, how it's been created. You don't know any of that. You just know the details of the light on screen.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care. I know how far your screen is.
I do. Well, that's the difference between you and I. I'd rather know what I'm measuring.
Can I just ask if you'd show the maths and put the maths back up to the camera, please?
Yes. There we go. So it's obviously on the scale. This is meant to be 1 degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the observers along the bottom or the adjacent angle.
Yes. This is a flat plane here.
Is that a curve?
No, it's flat.
It's flat. Why have you done maths on a flat plane? Is that not the opposite of what you were arguing?
No, he's showing us you missed half the conversation.
This means that the guy at the equator here is 363,000 kilometers from the North Pole.
So what was the point of the maths? Were you trying to show how far away the stars were, or were you trying to show something else?
This disproves a flat Earth.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I was on a phone call right at the beginning. I missed what you said.
To the stars that we don't know what they are. This doesn't disprove flat Earth. It shows your ignorance of what the stars are because you have no idea. That's all it does.
I don't care. I don't care what they're made of.
Well, that's it. You don't care, and you assume it disproves something. So, okay. Well, I do care, and I say it disproves nothing.
You're saying you're projecting something onto a screen. I don't care what you're projecting onto the screen. I care about how far away the screen is from me.
Sure, and if I give you the heliocentric system for you to measure on my screen, and you measure all the angles and distances, yeah, that doesn't mean that what you're presented with on the screen is the solar system. It's a representation on a projection screen. It bears nothing in terms of reality to do with the heliocentric system. It's just a model on a projection screen. So you can measure that screen to your heart's content. You can work out how everything in the program that presents that screen image to you works. But it tells you absolutely nothing about reality. It's just an image on a screen. It's lights on a screen that you're measuring. So unless you know what those things are...
I don't care about what's on the screen, just how far away the screen is.
Right. Well, I do.
Good for you. I don't see how it's relevant.
Well, I would see it's very relevant. If I'm to say that what's on my screen is reality, as you assert, that that's something physical that I can take a distance to. Well,
reality
I would
is
argue,
the screen itself.
I would come into the room and go, what are you talking about? You're telling me that that dot on the screen is 93 million miles away. Well, yeah, it works out to. Oh, right, well, the screen's only 6 foot away from you. How can it be 93 million miles away? Well, look at my maths. I've worked it out based on the model I'm presented with on this screen. Yeah, but unfortunately, even though you've worked it out well on my screen, it doesn't mean that you're sitting any more than 6 foot away from my screen, does it?
The maths would say that I am sitting 6 feet away from your screen. I don't care what's on the screen.
Yeah.
The screen is 6 feet away. I don't understand how you're not getting that.
Well, I'm trying to explain to you that if I
I don't care what's on
modelled
the
the
screen.
heliocentric system on my screen and you started taking measurements based on what's on the screen, it doesn't bear any resemblance to actual reality and actual things that you can actually measure distances to, like lighthouses, that you can touch and smell and taste. Those things are tangible. The stars are not.
I still don't understand how that's relevant at all. We're not measuring the light that's on the screen. We are measuring the screen itself in your analogy.
No, you're measuring the things I project onto it. So if I project a light onto it, if I project Polaris and a star field onto my screen and you start taking measurements from it, or I stick you in a planetarium and you go, all right, I can work out all the distances, and you work it all out perfectly based on the heliocentric maths that's created it in the first instance. It doesn't change the fact that you're inside a planetarium and what you're measuring bears absolutely no resemblance to the thing that you think it's actually representing. It's a totally different representation. But until you realise it's a projection of something else.
And there is a physical incandescent globe that represents a star. I'm not measuring how far the star is. I'm measuring how far away that incandescent globe is.
Right. So if I have an incandescent light projecting a light onto something else, that's what you're starting to measure. The light source is my projector, but you're measuring the thing on the screen.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Well, the projector isn't 6 foot from you. It's 3 foot from you.
Yeah, I don't care.
I know you don't care. You don't see it as relevant. I see it as the basis of actual reality. You don't seem to care.
I'm the one that's saying that it's a real object. You're the one saying it's a hologram or something.
No, I'm saying I don't know. You're saying I do know it's a physical thing and I can measure it. No, you don't know. You haven't got the slightest idea what it is, and you don't care.
Yeah, I don't care because there is a light and I can triangulate that light.
Good. I do care and say I don't know, therefore I don't use it as proof of anything. You say I don't care, but I'll use it as proof that the Earth isn't flat. Well, good for you. Long live fantasy world.
Yeah. Fair enough, David. As long as your viewers saw it, that's fine. And whose background is this? The waves sunset. Is that yours, Nathan?
Yeah, I've got like a load of wallpaper engine, it's called. It's cool. Like, instead of having a static desktop or just a photo, you can have an animated desktop. It's cool as frig.
It is. But why do you always show sunsets? I mean, do you actually have a model of what the flat Earth would look like? Are you like a projection Gleason map kind of guy, or what's your model?
It's a good question. So, do you see this line that runs down the water? That shouldn't be possible on a sphere. That reflection that comes down to your feet. How do you explain that if the water's curved?
Sorry, what? I'm not sure what you're pointing at. Did you have a cursor somewhere?
Yeah, you won't probably be able to see it in the Hangout. But so on screen now, you've got a sun, top third of the image, and coming down to your feet is a line of water that has got light reflected from the sun, correct?
Yes. Yep.
How is that possible if you're on a curve? Shouldn't reflect like that. You shouldn't get any reflection.
What do you mean you shouldn't get? Why not?
Because it's a mirror reflection off a flat surface.
All right.
Hello.
Hello.
How you
Long
doing?
time no see.
Good, thanks. How are you, Arav?
I'm good. Long time no see. How you been?
No, not bad, not bad. So just so we get to the end of this point, I put this up because it destroys the globe as far as I'm concerned. You should not have that reflection if the water's curved. It shouldn't be there.
I'm struggling to understand why you would say that. Why can't light reflect off the water at an angle like that?
It's obviously reflecting off it because it's flat. If you're to say that this curved water is going to give you a perfect reflection down to your feet, then you obviously don't understand how a curve works.
And it's also well, it's flat in that it doesn't have a hot spot. So if it was on a round globe, there'd be a round hot spot reflecting off of a round ball, but it's a straight coming toward the observer sort of line like you see on a flat street. Therefore, it kind of points to a possible flat surface. And, in your calculations, light is assumed to have a constant speed, but light's speed has been changed experimentally. It's been sped up. It's been slowed down. I think in one experiment, they brought it down to like 1/16th of its speed, like almost stopped it. So, there's a lot of factors here that we might be missing, even when we're calculating the distance, and a lot of assumptions that might be erroneous. So we have to like break down your diagram bit by bit to see, what erroneous assumptions are in it.
Well, I think we went through the assumptions, right? That your altitude is the same as the angle of elevation to Polaris. And obviously the assumption of a flat plane Earth. And assumptions of distance, I guess.
Yeah, and also I guess the speed of the light's assumed too. So what if light was, faster than we thought, or what if the object was, smaller and closer?
Yeah, but we know what the speed of light is, right? And it's, 186,000 miles a second. When you're traveling, 6,000 Ks?
Let's see.
This is not, I don't see where speed comes into it. We're talking about angles of elevation.
Right.
I don't see anywhere in there that speed would make a difference.
So the angles would probably be correct if the object is unmoving. But I think star distances have been assumed from parallax. And so they assume that, parallax of the stars is from the stars, I guess, or the Earth moving around the stars. But, what if there's no parallax? What if, the stars, are moving and spinning and we're staying still? What if that assumption's incorrect?
Once you realize that this shows that the Earth cannot be flat, I can then show you both that the Earth is a sphere and that these stars are a long way away, using the same basic principle, same basic trick.
So I guess we'd have to make sure that the speed of light is non-variable and pretty reliable and constant, because supposedly in different experiments they've changed it up.
Yeah, I know about the ones that supposedly speed it up to faster than the speed of light with massive air quotes, whatever. They're not measuring the ability of light to carry information. They basically compressed the front of a wave so that the front of the wave hit the receptor first, and because it was compressed, the middle of the wave hit faster than it should have. Yeah, I'd have to relook it up. Yeah, it's not saying that light has been sped up is fairly inaccurate.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd have to look into it more. But I have seen calculations. But I guess maybe we'd have to look at the counter calculations from, I guess, the flat Earth side that point to stars being like, 10,000 miles away, 12,000 miles away, if that, in the firmament.
Well, that's what I did here. That's what I did here, is that if your angle of elevation is equal to the latitude, then I've just used 85, like North Pole and 85 degrees north to work out how far away it is.
Oh, 7,000 miles? Oh, interesting. 7,000 kilometers. So that's like 4,000 miles, something like that.
4.5, I think. 4.
Yeah, I think it's like 6 miles for every 10 kilometers, something like that.
Yeah, 6344 1.609. 3,942. Okay.
I mean, I will concede this, and I did straight away. You know, given the assumptions that we've laid out, we can't account for this on a flat plane, and I'm not going to deny that. It's a fact. You're right.
Tops.
And I think on a flat. What was that? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to do the demonstration using Mario and Waluigi, using Polaris again to show that the Earth is actually a sphere, which you can do. I don't know whether it was you guys or Jeranism, but someone said that you cannot determine the shape of what you're standing on by looking up at the stars. Was that you guys?
I would probably echo that
maybe
to a degree.
Anthony.
Yeah, I'd echo that to a certain degree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also agree that I probably have said that, and that is my view. You can't discern the shape of what you're standing on based on the stars.
Well, I think you can.
Great.
And it's the same basic idea as Polaris as well. If you've got your dude on the North Pole, and Polaris is straight above, and then you've got Waluigi at the equator, and he's seeing it at second.
Mamma mia!
He's looking this way at 0 degrees above the horizon, looking at the same thing. So in between here and here, there's a curve.
Sure, but
which you can demonstrate.
You might be missing the point. The argument is that if we live on a ball and there's a celestial sphere that goes around us, then you can't tell the difference between something that's flat if you're on a flat plane compared to a sphere if you're on a sphere.
I think this demonstrates that it's not flat pretty solidly.
Sure. Well, our ground-based observations seem to show that it is flat.
Say again?
The ground-based observations show that it's flat, measurably, observably. You can do simple trigs, straight lines. You guys then get into band-aids and refraction to make it come back from curves and appear as though it's flat, even though it isn't. So those are the tangible observations that we make, and you're using the stars to say, well, as far as I'm concerned, the stars indicate that it's round. You know, fair enough. That's your basis of proof, then that's fine.
And we have a way of seeing that, it's flat by looking at the sun, and that beautiful picture that Nathan put up there. I mean, it's a flat sun reflection on a flat surface. You don't see that on a round surface. Right there, that's evidence. It's just whether or not people will accept the evidence or not. So, if they can't.
Then. At night time, at sunset.
Can I just say that my point's been obfuscated accidentally? The point about the shape of the Earth, if we're stood on a ball and we're looking up on the underside of a celestial sphere, you would not be able to tell any different than looking on a flat plane, looking up at a flat sky, because they are the same view. They are the exact same view.
No. You've got this guy with a star straight above him. You've got this guy looking at the same thing that way. The thing is on my ceiling. These guys are on different planes.
So
looking at the same thing.
You're representing a 90-degree bend.
Yes. Right. Which there is.
And to look at Polaris for the guy on your left, you'd have to look toward the ground. You wouldn't be able to look up to see it. You'd have to look, 45 degrees toward the ground to see Polaris or something? You'd have to look down.
This guy is at the equator on a globe, and he sees Polaris at 0 degrees on the horizon.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. But a guy on a flat plane, further away he gets from the star, in other words, towards the equator, we know that everything in the sky that's above the horizon will descend towards the horizon as you go further away from it. That's called perspective. That's why.
Yeah, at what angle? So this guy's on the equator, right? This guy's now on the equator of a flat plane. So Waluigi's on the equator. And what did we calculate Polaris to be? 6,000 Ks up.
Mute, Arav.
So he should be seeing He should be seeing Polaris at roughly, what, 30 degrees elevation?
Rev, put yourself on mute, dude.
Just popped him on mute.
Yeah, it's annoying. These are called amiibos, by the way. The little Nintendo.
Sorry to do this
Switch
to you. Can you go through your point again? Because it was just crackles and stuff. Just go through it one more time.
All right. Polaris is straight above him. This guy is at the equator, but he sees Polaris on the horizon. So he is like this relative to this guy. Yeah, they're not on the same plane.
Sure, yeah, that's right. But the stars that are above the guy's head that's on the equator appear to him the same way that the stars above the guy's head at the North Pole appear to him. Obviously, they're different stars, but the point is that you can't tell.
They're watching the same star. They're
You're
looking at the same
referencing
star.
Polaris.
If you imagine the star is on my ceiling, this guy is looking up, this guy is looking at the horizon.
That's right, but he won't see them on your ceiling, will he? He'll see them on the horizon.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you would expect to see, whether it's a ball or a plane, because of perspective. The exact same view.
We're talking about angles of elevation.
Right.
Plane as Mario.
Yeah. But he's a lot further down the plane.
Oh, he might be way over here somewhere. That's fine.
Right. So where's that star going to be on his plane?
It's going to be 6,000 something Ks above. And
no, it's not.
We just worked out how far above the flat Earth it is.
Right. So you disagree that things that go off into the distance head towards the horizon then?
I do.
Right. So again, I'll ask the question again.
The trigonometry stays the same.
I guess I'll ask you the question again. You've got Mario with the star right above his head, but you've got the other guy that's on the equator 3,000 miles away to your left or to your right.
Yeah.
How's he going to see the same star relative to his position?
It's still 6,000 Ks above Mario.
Yeah, all right. Is it going to be on his horizon or not?
On a flat plane, no.
Of course it is.
No, it's not. Do the trig.
That assumes that you know how far away the star is.
We just worked it out.
Yeah, I've gone through this.
I saw the conclusion. I didn't see the build up to it, so I'm not over familiar.
Sorry, I've got to interject. Sorry, Sleeping Warrior. If we count out the assumptions that he's making, it doesn't work on a flat plane. I'll concede that. But yeah, we don't know what it is, we don't know where it is, and you can still, according to Anthony, explain it by virtue of perspective. Now, in the same way as a mountain will drop on the horizon as you get further away from it, its height doesn't change, but it does drop closer to the horizon, so I completely see Anthony's point.
But we know what the angle of elevation is. We know how far it is from the North Pole to the equator. That's what, is it 10,000 Ks?
But you don't know how far away the star is.
We just worked it out.
Assuming that it's a physical object you can measure to.
But if you work it out based on living on a spheroid, and then work out...
No, this is based on a flat plane.
If you do
this is a flat model. Okay.
Yeah, this is a flat model. If you work it out on a sphere, you can work out that the stars are very, very far away.
That's the point. So depending on which set of maths you use, the conclusion you come to is essentially the same. Depends on whether you've done your maths based on a flat plane or a curve.
On a flat plane, the math is wrong. The math doesn't work on a flat plane.
So you're saying that the stars can't be that close? You're saying that the stars can't be that close and that they're further, or what?
Well, they are further away, yes. But this first step is purely to demonstrate that the flat Earth cannot account for the stars.
So you've gone from you don't care to you assert that they are further away. A minute ago you didn't care.
No, I'll demonstrate. How can we do this? When you see that these guys are at different planes, this is 90 degrees north and this is 0 degrees north. You can basically go 1 degree at a time, showing that this guy, oops, where are we? Eventually becomes 0 degrees north. like a continuous function kind of thing, purely by looking at Polaris.
Okay. So that means
But the thing is, hold on, even on a globe, that's far away, you'd still have a Polaris out there, but on a globe, the thing is you wouldn't be able to make calculations either because, with the astronomical distances, they'd essentially be parallel, for the same time of day, because we're this small little speck compared to the sun. How can we draw anything but 90-degree angles to the sun anyway with its huge, massive size and its huge distance away from us? So that can work either way. There are holes in the heliocentric model too. Maybe you're right. Maybe the star is closer than we think, and maybe it's only 3,000-4,000 miles away, and the distance of light needs to be totally re-examined. And maybe we need to go down the paths that we closed with this assumption that the sun is billions and billions of miles away. Maybe we need to look back into the ether wind, look back into the electrical universe and the ether, because if we are moving through a universe, and if we brought back in the ether, which was thrown out by Einstein and stuff, we should be feeling an ether wind. Maybe we need to go back to the ether wind. Maybe there is no ether wind because we're not moving and the ether still exists.
I've got to say, it's like 20 to 2 in the morning here, and I really tuned out. I'm sorry for that.
That's okay. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. If we lived on a ball, and the amount of money that science has to show that we could live on a ball, if the version that pictures from space is unrealistic for us to verify because we don't have the money to do it, and I accept that point, wouldn't you think that the easiest way to prove that we live on a sphere is to have two observers in the southern hemisphere looking south at the same time and showing the same set of stars but in a different rotation point?
A different rotation point, or hang on.
What
I thought you were going to say then was have one observer in Tierra del Fuego in Chile, Argentina. Sorry, whatever the southern tip is. Have one guy there facing south. Have another guy in Sydney, possibly, or Tasmania, wherever those two locations are that are in the darkness at the same time. Have those two observers face south, take photos of the same stars, the same celestial pole. They're looking in on a flat Earth on the azimuthal equidistance map. They're looking in opposite directions, but seeing the same thing.
Correct. Yeah. Now, does that evidence exist?
I don't know anyone in Tierra del Fuego.
No, but
I do know a guy that went to Antarctica.
I agree with you. On a flat plane, two observers will be pointing in opposite directions. However, is the evidence to prove that we live on a sphere there for you guys to claim that we do? Because that will be the simplest, easiest way to prove. Yeah, but is it actually there, though, the evidence?
As in, would that bear out?
No. Is it actually there? Not would
I think he's asking in general.
I'm asking, is the evidence there?
Look at these things. Has someone done that? Has someone done that experiment? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I don't know. The way I look at these sort of things is I look at it and say, am I special? And I go, no. But there are all these websites around the world that cater for people in any location in the world to say, this at this time, at this night, in your location, this is where this star will be. If I can verify it from my location, I have to assume that people in Chile or wherever it is can verify it for their location.
Right. Now that's the issue there, because you have to assume. And I agree with you. I agree with you. You have to assume. But what happens if your assumption is incorrect? Because there is no evidence to prove.
Then the universe is conspiring against me in particular. That's the conclusion that I come to.
Not the universe, just elite satanic scientists, who are Luciferians who know the truth but ignore it. I mean, on a flat model, you have the sun and stars disappear, if they're far away. The human eyes only can see so far. I mean, we can see that at a short distance. That's verifiable. Even in a room, an object that gets far away from you will recede into the distance to a vanishing point, starting there by getting smaller, even in a small confined space. So that is observable. So based off of that basis, the sun, moon, and stars can, you know, disappear if you get far away enough. And so basically they're saying they're disappearing down to a vanishing point. And then if you build off of that with the vanishing point having a top portion and a bottom portion, you know, if it's a vanishing point, stuff vanishes down to that point from all sides from 360 degrees. So you're going to have a top portion that vanishes down to that point and a bottom portion. We're only 6 feet off the ground. So you only have 6 feet of vanishing point from your eyes down. So stuff will appear to set top up because the top part of your vanishing point can describe a greater arc than your bottom part. So objects do this observably. They disappear bottom first in the distance, just like the stars, just like the sun, just like objects in the distance. This is observed, and this is like a world you can build off of. But you know, the heliocentric world, you can't build anything off of it. You just disappear. You just disappear down a bunch of roads that lead to mathematical boondoggles and go nowhere. You know, it's just, you know, maybe we need a better model.
Can I ask you a question about sunsets?
Who?
About 2 minutes.
Anyone,
yeah,
really?
Go ahead.
At what degree of elevation does the sun set?
Define set.
Well, I'm happy to say it's still above the horizon. Oh, just say 1 degree or 2 degrees or whatever.
Yeah,
probably when it gets 10,000 miles away. At that point, it's too small for your eyes to differentiate, and it appears to disappear. Probably that.
Okay.
That's a rough guess.
Miles. All right, 10,000 miles is what, 16,009 k's.
And that's in either direction. So you'd see it 10,000 miles away to the east when it rises, and 10,000 miles away to the west when it sets. So that would be a total of what, 20,000 miles of visibility, give or take, rough math.
Right. So whereabouts are you in America, I assume, in the United States? At what latitude are you at?
30 degrees.
30 degrees north? All right.
North.
Hang on. Give me a minute, and I'll be back.
Sorry, y'all, for the shoehorn math, but that's just basically the principle or whatever. Anyway, the sun and moon and stars would basically disappear if they're far enough away. That's the basic principle.
Now, I like yours and Arwin's explanations for why things vanish from the bottom up. You know, it's purely down to how much vision you have when you're looking down versus how much vision you have when you're looking up. That angle is significantly decreased in the downward if you're on the beach. You know, and it increases as you increase your elevation. But ultimately, you can see as high as you like. You've got an infinite, you know, you haven't got a ceiling. So you can just see up to the tops of mountains. But it doesn't necessarily mean at 30 miles distance you can see all the way to the shore, because your vision is obscured. There's nothing you can do about it. There is that zone of invisibility.
Yeah. Plus, you know, the air, it does have thickness. It's a minute thickness at a small distance. But in, you know, great distances, pollution and air thickness adds up. And, you know, eyes are limited too, so it's not like we can see forever until, you know, we get high enough. And, you know, if there's a dome above us, we might only be able to get so high up before, you know, vision fails, but you can still see pretty far. In those videos where they got the balloons going up in the sky, they can see what, like 10,000 miles either way, something like that.
Can I just say, Nathan's about to close for the day. Ruhif, if you've got any evidence to show the sphericity of the Earth, with 2 observers in the south looking due south at the exact same time, point me in that direction, because I'd like to see that. I'd jump ship tomorrow if it existed. However, the fact that it doesn't exist is an issue.
And with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. And also a massive, huge thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.